If the deepest wounds you carry come from the people who are supposed to protect you, you aren't alone. I spent the last year talking through Healthy Gamer counseling about my traumas and how it affected me. And I made, for the past 7 months, videos about how trauma affected me. But after all this time, I feel that chapter in my life is coming to a close, and I feel so much better. And I know so many of my brothers and sisters out there still deal with their trauma. And I hope by telling my story, how I healed, it can help you heal your traumas as well. And hi, if you're new here, I'm Cahir. I'm here to take you one step closer to self love. Now, I got inspired to make this video because I recently just came back from a family trip, kind of out of the blue. So, um, my parents had this college fund for me saved up. Even though I studied in Poland, so I got to study for free, thank goodness. But that money was still there, just sitting, not really earning a lot of money because it was just invested one time, not touched. And I and this was during my whole realization about CPTSD, emotional neglect. And I made a pretty nasty story about my parents. You can watch any of my videos. Not to say that stuff didn't happen. It did. But in the spiritual lens, the Course in Miracles, it talks about having selective memory, remembering the good times. It's not excusing, but all our loving thoughts are true, or all our unloving thoughts are false. Also, just how we're wired to remember all the bad stuff, and the good stuff really goes to unconsciousness and we forget. And the thing I'm realized is I think it's still important to talk about it and not to shame, because I think there's a lot of guilt and shame attached to anything with parents, especially how if you're raised like I was, that you're supposed to always honor your parents. Your parents all all they do the best for you, even if they hurt you. It's it's for your own good. That kind of mentality and the culture we grow up in. It's not to question parents, so it's taboo. And the thing that made it so difficult to see the trauma, one was the the stigma against it, especially nowadays. We're like, oh, everyone's got trauma. And honestly, I think it's true because this culture we grow up in, look at the world around you. It's not a healthy culture. And sure, there's always somebody worse. I'm 100% sure there's people that have been treated way worse by their parents. But I look at it like this: just because your leg is broken, and you could like compare yourself, like, oh, my leg is broken, it's just broken, but the other guy I know, he doesn't have any legs. Well, that sucks for him too, but like, your leg is broken, it's affecting you, you gotta fix it, right? And fixing it is not going to be like, oh, I wish my leg isn't broken, why wasn't I in an environment where I didn't break my legs? Do you know what I mean? It's about, okay, my leg is broken, what can I do? Thank goodness it's only broken and it can heal, right? And I look at that in my position, right? That I can, I know some of my brothers and sisters out there go no contact. And I actually went no contact with my dad for 3 months because I needed that peace, but I felt that was too extreme. So I used this opportunity because I found out I had CPTSD about, I think, half a year ago. I had that time to process it, and then in May, the emotions weren't so high. So I was like, okay, if there's any time to go visit my family, it'd be just in the middle of the year, May. There's no holiday. It's after Easter. They're not going to be stressed out, and it it worked out. It was good. As visiting now, I have the awareness of an adult of how there was could have affected me and how their energy, their vibe could have affected me. Like, for example, my every time I visit or my brother and I visit, I think my parents' love language, especially my mom, is buying stuff. So she'll buy us a lot of stuff. And we came back to the store, and my dad was like, "How much money are you going to spend on the Zuknojek?" In Polish. He said the whole thing in Polish, but the gnojek is like brat. No, he said it half jokingly, but there was it wasn't 100% a joke. um, and I remember in the past I'd been so triggered, like, oh, if you don't want to buy something, don't make it a big deal. But I was like, you know what? That's his deal. I'm not gonna feel guilty, right? If they choose to buy me presents, I'm not gonna feel guilty about getting presents from them. I also remember there was this moment where my mom wanted to put on like I think the heater because it was a little bit cold in the morning, and my dad started freaking. I was like, "Oh, come on! Oh, how about wear a sweater or something? Oh, I'm banging off the nose." And this is the dynamic I grew up in. Was like small stuff like that. Like, oh. But I was looking out for me for Cahir. I'm like, all right, I don't have to take that stuff in. I actually left the house. I left the house. He's gonna because imagine as a kid, you hear that you can't escape, and you're taking all those beliefs in about money, how it could affect you. And like I said, I'm a sensitive guy. I'm a sensitive soul. I need good nourishment for the soul. Like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. I think all of us, as humanity, need something like that. Um, but it's cool to be like to see that as an adult. Be like, oh, okay, he's getting triggered about money like that. I'm going to leave and give myself space and not let it affect me. And what really helped was setting healthy boundaries. And like I've said multiple times that I didn't know what boundaries were, like boundary setting. I I know the therapy talk, whatever, but if you use boundaries in a healthy way, well, it really helped me. Because before I didn't even think I could say no to my parents. I could say, hey, I don't like that. I honestly I couldn't. And if you come from a dysfunctional family, I think you know you know why. I saw this post from Lisa Romano, great YouTuber, and she said if you feel stressed or guilty because when you say no, it means your needs were seen as dangerous. Like, oh man, that makes a lot of sense. But as an adult, so my parents, whenever they talk about money with us, with me and my brother, they get really anxious and they start trying to guilt and shame to change some kind of behavior. And this time, I was able to say, "You know what? I understand you're anxious about it, but we're not going to talk about money." With my dad's case, I just told him, well, I was being honest. Like, I want to use this money, invest it well, put into savings, because right now this money is just sitting there dying. Basically, it's not getting any more money, which is not really a boundary, but I was kind of playing it smart because also they love to be like, "Oh, tell me about your love life. How's it going?" I'm like, no, thank you." um, and I know the past version of me would be like, "Oh, they're my parents. I have to tell them everything." And I'm like, "Why? I don't have to tell them everything. I don't." And I learned the hard way to never bring up the past. Dr. K, founder of Healthy Gamer, talks about to understand how your parents deal with the guilt. And this, I did this unconsciously. It was early in the morning. I was talking to my mom, and we were talking about her brother, and there's some family drama. There was some family drama in the past. I mentioned the story in the video when I was I think I was like 12 or 13, and I had tuba practice, and my mom saw that I was late for tuba practice. She never cared at all. I've never seen her care about my tuba practice before, and she's like, "Oh, we're going to be late. We're going to be late." And she's speeding down. She's like speeding. I could see she's anxious. She's not telling me why. And then right before we go to the music store, she's like, um, and I mentioned that memory. I was like, oh, it would have been nice to understand like how you were feeling because I was a very anxious. I was anxious. I didn't know why you were upset. I thought that maybe it was something about me. I had no idea. And then she darvoed me, which is was deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. So she didn't deny that happening, but she said like, "Oh, I told you about it, but." Uh, and then attack. But you were too young, and your eyes were glossed over. You had no idea what I was talking about. And reverse victim and offender. Well, then she didn't. She brought up a very painful memory about when I got angry. Like talked about a dark night of the soul when I was 19. A very, very painful memory. I won't get into it. And I was upset, very upset. Um, but uh, and she wanted to hug it out like right after. I'm like, no, you upset me. I'm gonna go on a walk. Um, and this is the thing. My nervous system was on fire. Every part of me wanted to make it a bigger deal. Also, be a victim. Like, how could she say that stuff to me? My own mother. All that stuff. I'm like, you know what? Whose job is it to regulate my nervous system? It's my job. I'm in control. I control my actions. I went on a walk. I called my brother. I called my best friend, or I left a voice note. And I had agency because before, I know if you're part of a dysfunctional family, you know how it is. Like, they trigger you, you get triggered back, you start screaming, and then like, oh, see, I know who you are. You're this trigger guy. I proved myself. I was like, no, I'm not letting that happen again. And that was the only incident because then I knew, you know what? It's not worth bringing up the past. I made a mistake. I can only surmise that she probably felt guilty, and she wanted to put the blame on me. And this is the thing. I think a healthy parent would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry you felt that way. I wish I controlled my emotions, or I don't know." Yeah, I did not bring the past up ever after that. I think I could have. I knew something like that would happen, but to see it actually like, like Darvo. This is actual Darvo. I think in my case, what also helped, and I want to hear y- your story, guys, because as some of you know, I'm a twin, so I have a twin brother, and I feel they treated us a lot differently when we visited together, like a lot worse. But if when I would visit alone, I feel like I'm an only child, and they like a good way. They took it like a lot better care, and there were we didn't even, aside from that story, we didn't really fight. So, um, I know from experience that if I go by myself, it's a lot easier. I don't know why that is, but it's always been that case. And then the day before, I think, or the day I was going to the airport, my dad's like, "Oh, Kahir, I wish you gave me grandchildren and you could visit with your wife, but it's not what it is." I'm like, and the past version of me would be so upset that he said something like that. Like, oh no, but it was like arguing against reality. But and there's a lot of like shoulds. Oh, they should be this way. Like life should be this way. I'm like, it's arguing against reality. What happens if you argue against reality? You suffer. So I'm not gonna do that anymore. I I see now that I chose to perceive them as villains in the past because I gave them a lot of power over my inner peace. Like, oh, you said this, you made me feel this way. No one can make you feel anything. It was only my agreement. If I said, oh, yes, reality should be this way, you're right. Even though my authentic self says, no, I don't want to have kids. And I would implore you guys to question everything. Because My mom especially likes to give unsolicited advice, or uh, a lot of the times, both of my parents would be like, "Oh, if you did this, then this would happen for sure." She said something like, "Oh, if you guys," I won't give the specific example, but basically, she said that she feels that uncomfortable situations can give pearls, and I understand, like, but she said, "Oh, the life you guys are living, it's too comfortable. You guys won't get pearls of." And I remember having this belief like life has to be suffering, uncomfortable. And in my early 20s, when I studied, I had my English studies in the morning, and then I had the acting classes in the evening, and then I also had some lessons, like English teaching lessons, in the middle. I had no time for myself because that's what I thought. I thought you had to struggle to prove your worth, to be uncomfortable. I took what they said as gospel, and then but the thing is, I encourage you guys to question everything. And I just like, okay, can you give me an example of an uncomfortable situation that you went through and you got a pearl, as you say? And I said, well, it was hard raising you too. and and she also brought up Arnold Schwarzenegger, which I like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But like, bro, come on, don't compare me to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Come on. And what's really helped me now is to see that they're just their own people. They have their own beliefs. They had their own experiences. They can believe whatever they want to believe, and I have to, e- even if they believe stuff about me, that's negative. That's their thing. I don't have to let it affect me anymore because I could see now I was enmeshed, which means I thought I had to be in control of their feelings, right? And all enmeshment does is cause suffering, and it stifles the natural self. I was talking to my brother, and he said that depression, this is from like nonviolent communication, depression is living someone else's life. And that's what I would describe my early 20s as, living someone else's life, and I was depressed, bro. And what's giving me peace is because I I thought I had to change them. I even I was thinking like maybe we could do like family therapy or something, but I'm like, you know what? I can't force anybody to change. And I just have to accept this is who they are and live my own life. And that's peace. I mean, if your parents are open for therapy and you feel like you need it, go right ahead, man. But I think we all know that not everyone is open for that, especially not my parents. Whoop. Because in the past, when I was so enmeshed, I cared so much about what they thought about me. I was so anxious, so ashamed of my life. And for what? That's not what the Creator wants for us. I am as perfect as God created me at all times, totally worthy, regardless of circumstances. This is the divine truth. No matter what bullshit that was shoved down our throats, guys. And I could see that they honestly did their best with the tools, the consciousness they had. No, my parents are two Polish immigrants. Yeah, imagine, like, well, I know how it is, but it's easier for me to move to Poland because I already had my citizenship and everything. But for them, going to a new country, not having a lot of support, it's it's not to excuse. This is what I'm saying. Like, there was damage, right? But it's not holding them guilty. Because if we want to change anything, it's just a system, that this toxic culture that we live in. We go outside, we see that we don't really value human life as much as I think we should. But the thing that matters most is your inner peace, your mental health. So I don't know what your situation is, what relationship is with your parents. But remember, the course teaches I can choose peace instead of this. Also said something about who could who can change the past, but in fantasy. And I know I've made countless videos about my experience, and I think it's still valid because it's important to talk about emotional neglect, CPTSD. But what's more important right now is healing. Right? Your leg is broken. Let's fix that leg so we can start running again. or in my case, walking. And my journey has its ups and downs. So remember, have grace. Give yourself space to be messy, to be okay. So I think a lot of us, what actually hampers the healing process is to ignore these feelings. Like, oh, I shouldn't have these feelings because these are my parents. They did their best. And that might be true. But your feelings are your feelings. They're here. Don't invalidate them. Validate them. Let them speak. Listen to them. How can you heal a broken leg if you don't even recognize that it's broken? Like, no, 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 it's not broken. It's just a flesh wound. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Please subscribe if you want more healing content like this. May the Holy Spirit light up your path wherever it takes you. Take care.